Welcome back for another week of Vote 17. This is a student-produced election series interviewing politicians each week in the run-up to the September election. To get involved, simply like the Vote 17 Facebook page and send us a message with the questions that you'd like us to put to the politicians each week. I'm joined this week by my co-host, Maggie Dever.
Hi everyone. Today we welcome our third guest, Shane Gallagher, the Green MP candidate for Dunedin South. Thank you for coming today, Shane.
Thank you for inviting me along.
No worries. So to kick things off today, what brought you into politics and why are you campaigning for the Greens in Dunedin South?
Well, I was actually the president of the union here at the university for a couple of years. And during that period, a couple of friends of mine had said that I should get involved in politics because they're kind of impressed with what I was doing there. And so in 2008, I decided to join the Greens. And on the first, it's a funny story because the first meeting I went along to, branch meeting, I thought jokingly had said to me, "Oh, we're looking for a candidate for Dunedin South. Would you like to do it?" I went, "Haha." That must be what they say to everyone coming through the door, like a little bit of a joke, haha. But actually the next meeting then went to, they said, no, we were actually serious. we knew about you and we know about you and we think you'd be really, really good. So that's kind of actually how I got involved. So just from that meeting then I actually stood in that election and apparently did okay. And got the bug and hasn't been able to give up since. So a bit of a slow learner in that respect.
Awesome. So specifically, what values do you share with the Green Party of New Zealand?
Well, obviously, I've been involved with environmental movements since I was a teenager. And it was very early on, this was like in the late 80s and early 90s, when I was still at school. And I very quickly realised that we had the technical solutions even back then to pave our way towards a sustainable future, but we didn't have the political willpower. So that was what so I very early on realised it was politics that really had to change. And I didn't really see myself get involved in politics in Europe because for various reasons. But when I was here, I saw an opportunity to get involved. And this is why I really wanted to get involved with a political movement that championed the environment, that addressed the issues of poverty, and also had the vision to restructure our economy and our society that meant that we actually would have a future together for future generations, because the path we're going on is not only just not sustainable, but is going to be a disaster. I mean, we're talking about civilizational collapse if we don't change what we're doing and how we're getting there. And that's why I really, am involved with the Greens, and this kind of disposal of values that I represent. It's about justice for people, justice for the environment, and making sure that we have a future for not only ourselves but our children and 7 generations, 8 generations ahead.
And you think that the Greens, if elected into government, could implement realistic and effective policies through that way?
Indeed, and we have a huge range of policy initiatives we've announced. Of course, we want to eliminate poverty. That's what Materia Ture, our co-leader, has been announced a couple of weeks ago, was the ambition to eliminate poverty in this country. We have 200,000 children who are living below the poverty line, and that affects them for the rest of their lives. And a lot of people say, can we afford it to do that? Of course, yes, we can, because we're the richest we've ever been in the history of this country. And 2, the costs of poverty far outweigh any direct costs it costs us now, because the costs of poverty are lifelong illness and an inability to prosper in the rest of your life. And you start making short-term decisions, because if your life is unstable and chaotic as it is when you're poor, you can't make long-term strategic decisions about how you live your life. And those are that's the kind of mindset and this kind of framework, the social framework within which we have to make those difficult decisions so that we're a resilient community and we can build resilience in and we can build towards a sustainable future. So that's why poverty is so important, eliminating poverty is so important. We also have a plan to become carbon neutral by 2050. Now, this is absolutely vital because we have to honour our Paris agreements, but we also have to have a future for society. The stats and the numbers and the physics around climate change are getting scarier by the month. This is a global challenge, and we have to play our part.
So with getting to carbon neutral, what's the plan? What, if you had to do one thing to get there, what would you do? What would you do first?
It's not what the first thing you need to do is convert our electricity sector to being 100% renewable energy. And we can do that pretty easily. We can be a world leader in that, be the first country to do that, and we can lead the world in that. We need to eliminate our transport pollution, emissions. We can do that easily again because we have lots of renewable energy in this country, so we can switch to electric rail, electric cars and vehicles, and electric trains, and look at our shipping as well. And the other big cow in the room is our dairy emissions, our farm emissions, and we can turn around and reduce those emissions massively. We know how to do this. We need to reduce our herd. I think everyone, the dairy herd, we need to reduce our agricultural emissions, but we need the whole country on board for that. There's a whole range. There's no one silver bullet. That's just not. That's that's not what we can do. We have to have a whole of society approach because all of society is contributing to the problem. All of our society has to contribute to the solution, and there's lots of solutions out there. And we will, in fact, wind up having a richer society. Our lives will be enriched and enhanced, and we'll actually make sure that we have a future for our children and our grandchildren.
Sweet. So before you mentioned Materia Ture, given her recent admissions about her actions while she was younger, does she still have the full support of the Green Party?
She has our 110% support.
And how can you justify this because of her recent admissions?
What we're talking about is a system, a legal system that criminalises poverty, that makes you a criminal for being poor, that punishes you for being poor, and it is wrong. Every single progressive leader in the history of humankind has broken the law at some point or other, okay? And what we're saying is that the system punishes people. And if a system punishes people and forces people to lie and to cheat in order to survive, to put food on the table, to make sure your child doesn't go hungry, then the system's wrong, okay? So you can talk to, apartheid was legal. You know, the Palestinian issue is legal. All sorts of things have been legal. Doesn't mean they're just, and doesn't mean they're fair. So that's how we justify it, okay? Because the law is unjust, the system is unjust, and we shouldn't be forcing people to make unpalatable and horrible decisions simply because they have to choose between doing that and putting food on the table for their child.
So through the process that Materia has gone through to resolve these these admissions that she's made, it's also become clear through her own admission that she was had enrolled in the wrong area. She
That's
was,
correct, yeah.
So how do you think that's a separate issue from the poverty cycle that you're talking about?
Yes, I mean, the thing was for that is that she was 23, she was young. I mean, everyone has done something dumb when you're young. I mean, if everyone's lives were examined in the way that Materia's life has been examined, we would all have a lot of very, very, things that we're not proud of. You do silly things. It's a silly thing, all right? Now, let me compare this, however, with the fact that John Key, who was Prime Minister of New Zealand, did the same thing, except that he was doing it in order to vote for himself. And he was a sitting MP at the time. Now, when you're 23, you're young and you're a student, and you do something a little bit silly to help a friend out because, you don't understand the consequences of that, as opposed to doing that as a sitting MP, and you look at the way the media has treated Materia as opposed to a rich white man. Now, I think what this is showing us isn't that Materia has done anything wrong or she's done something a little bit wrong. What it's really exposing is the hypocrisy, the misogyny, and I would dare say it, the racism in this country, in the media, saying that, attacking her for something that's really, really a minor thing, when they didn't do it to male, white, rich MPs. You know what I mean? That's, you know, this is really exposing hypocrisy that we're seeing right across this country, and the reaction to it is just appalling.
Thanks for that, Shane. So I've got a question, and that is, how do you see the resignation of, admittedly, white man Andrew Little influences the Greens and Materia going into this election?
Well, Andrew did what he did. I mean, the Labour Party has to, you know, they do what they're doing. And Andrew Little was a really, really good MP. He brought unity to his party, and he's a man of integrity, and he did what he felt he had to do. So obviously, this means that Jacinda Ardern has now become leader of the Labour Party, and it was a dangerous thing to do, because, you know, especially this far out from an election, but it seems to have worked really, really well for them. It doesn't really have any effect on us directly. We're getting our votes out, we're getting our, you know, we've done very well in the polls, and what we're focusing on is our campaign, and Labour's got to focus on theirs.
So on Jacinda, is she something new, or is it just a new face for the Labour Party?
Oh, I think the Labour Party's, I mean, it's obviously the same, she's a new face, but I think what it's doing is showing the electorate a different persona. So Andrew Little and Bill English were kind of two middle-aged white men, and then you have Jacinda Ardern, who's now, she's a Gen Yer, she's female, very personable. So I think a lot of what politics is about is people have been able to identify with politicians. So I think she brings something new in that she's young, she's a woman, she's a different generation, so she brings a new kind of focus, and people are able to identify with her in a different way than were with Andrew.
So as for the Green Party, where does that authenticity come from? I mean, you're polling at 15% according to Colmar Brunton, which is the best you've ever done. Is that because of the sort of authenticity linked to the Green Party by Materia's recent emission?
Absolutely, and we know that from our own internal polling and from all the feedback we're getting, because thousands of people across the country are sharing the stories of horror stories they have with wins. When they're trying to claim benefits, people have been forced into Kafkaesque situations where they're being forced to make all sorts of unpalatable choices because the system is punishing you for being poor. So we know that that story has resonated with people, and they understand that there's an element of the society that punishes you for...
But these stories, they've been going on for years. I mean, even when the Labour was in power previously. So yeah, has it got worse, or is this a new thing at this election? Why has it come to a head now?
Very good question. Now, I think Materia and the Green Party have been trying to highlight these issues for 15 years, and it's only when Materia had used up all her weapons or ability to tell the story, and then she told her own story. And this is what captured everyone's imaginations, because the personal is the political. You have this personal story which then allows everyone to connect with you and makes it real. And this has ignited a debate that we've needed to have for a very long time. And the fact that we jumped 4% in the polls practically much overnight over that admission shows that this story has resonated, and it is connecting with real people's lives and people's real lived experiences. So yeah, I think that's what the story, the personal story, exposes or reveals a greater truth about what's happening in this country.
Awesome. So do you think the combination of this new story that Materia's brought up and the addition of Jacinda Ardern, do you think this will really encourage young voters to get out to the polling booths on September 23rd?
Absolutely, I think so. I mean, in fact, I know so, because people are calling us, and we're doing phone calling around, and sorry, excuse me. So we're phoning voters and electors at the moment, And what we're hearing back is that that story has inspired people to go out and vote, often for the first time, because they suddenly see someone in politics or who they can resonate with, that can represent them. So I think a lot of young people are inspired to go out and vote because it's really voting for change. It's voting for a real, genuine change. It's not the same politics as normal. It's something different.
Okay.
Something
Awesome.
people can attach to.
Yeah, thank you for that. So you host a show called Sustainable Lens on the radio that often engages with sustainability experts. How do you think the next government can implement realistic and effective policy to ensure that sustainability is an important thing for the next 3 years?
So one of the great challenges with sustainability is aligning your national or international goals, such as climate change mitigation and carbon use reduction, with local actions. So that's the big challenge there. How do you implement these local problem-solving things which address the national and international goals? And that's the big challenge. So one of the things that you want to look at is providing expertise and funding for local projects that will address the issue. So let's take a good solid example. For instance, people in Wellington could say, let's implement solar panels across the whole country. Everyone's going to go solar. Well, people living on one side of the peninsula here in Dunedin don't get very much sun, so they might want to put a wind turbine up. But people on the other side of the peninsula, we get lots of sun, so they want to have solar panels. So the target shouldn't be about one solution or the other. It should be, here's the goal. How would we allow our local community to achieve that goal? And then the local community comes along and thinks of all the clever and localized solutions to that problem. So that's renewable energy. You could have solutions addressing clean water challenges. How do we address water table rises as a result of climate change and sea level rises on local coastal communities? Each coastal community will have a different response to that. So what the government really needs to be able to do and implement is a top-down, bottom-up meeting of people and minds goals to come up with really innovative solutions across the whole country to address the problems we have. And once you do that, you actually build your community, you build your social resilience, you build your energy resilience, and you come up with things like farmers markets and local energy production, like the wind farm out in Blueskin Bay. So, sorry.
But what do we do if people aren't interested? I mean, many people will be interested in having their own wind turbine or putting solar panels on their roof or planting along a waterway on their farm, right? But some people won't be interested or won't have the time. What does the government have to do to bring everyone along with them?
Well, it turns out that generally isn't the case. In fact, once you turn around and say, people, look, we need to achieve these goals, a section of the community will pop up and meet those challenges. So one of the really interesting things that you were talking about was local budgets. So in Brazil, they started back in the 1980s, they decided local government needed to figure out how best to use their local budget in their local communities. So what they did was community budgeting. So they'd have like $100 million for the year. They say, local community, come along and tell us how to spend that. Well, maybe only 5% or 10% of the people from the community would come along to each year and engage with that process. But over a 20-year period, they discovered that 95% of the entire population had engaged at some point or another. So this is what's going to happen, is that when we say we need to eliminate pests on the peninsula, well, people in the city centre might get involved, but the peninsula people will get involved. And then we say, well, we need to have some renewable energy production in the city centre. City centre people get involved, and then the people in the peninsula won't get involved. But as your population engages and disengages, what happens is actually your entire community winds up engaging over a period of time. So that's how that will work, yeah.
Thank you for that, Shane. So another issue that you've been quite vocal on in the past is mental health. What do you see as the biggest issues and what would you do about them?
Well, youth suicide is, we're the #1 leading country in youth suicide, and that's a huge issue. In fact, my son just last week, one of his friends, a 15-year-old girl, had attempted to commit suicide and called him after she'd done so, and he's only 17, he didn't know what to do. Thankfully she's all right, but this is a huge issue.
Is it getting worse?
It is getting worse, yes. It is getting worse. We're now #1 in the OECD
and
for youth suicide.
why is that?
We
Do we
don't know? We don't know, and this is one of the things we have to find out, is why, youth suicide is so high. Why do people feel so despairing about society? And you could look at inequality. Inequality we know has an effect, and we're a very unequal country. The fact that we're looking possibly at existential threats to our civilization, like climate change. Do we have hope for our future? What are these big changes to society that's driving these behaviours? Is it the fact that the children only have maybe the only child in the family, or 1 or 2 children in the family? Maybe they don't have huge support networks. A lot of children don't go out and play, don't have a huge amount of range. There's a whole lot of possible reasons for this. We need to find out why, but we also need to desperately fund mental health, and this government has not been doing that. It's been reducing its mental health funding. We need to increase our mental health funding. We need to have an immediate change, but we also need to figure out what's going on in society that drives this terrible mental health issue. It's a terrible thing.
So essentially you're saying it's been an evolving issue and now it's reached like a crisis point of sorts.
Yeah, and the government's given up, thrown up its hands. It doesn't know what to do because it's out of ideas. The thing is, we need to throw money at this as a first response. And the second response, we need to put some really, really serious research in to figure out what's going on in society and address those problems.
Okay.
So why are they not inclined just to throw money at it? Is it something systemic about this government and their attitude to mental health or health in general that's
health
at
in
play
general.
here?
Yeah, it absolutely is health in general. They've been defunding our health system. They say keep spending more and more each year. Well, of course they're spending more and more each year. What they're not doing is spending enough each year. So our health costs increase every year. And that may not be associated with your CPI, your Consumer Price Index. The inflation rate of your health spending increases more because you have an elderly population, we have more health issues, we have changing demographics. So the amount of money that you have to spend on health is completely different to what you have on with CPI or whatever. We have to spend more, and it has to be addressing the actual real need. Let's take Otago as a really, really good example, where you have a very elderly population here with disparate, over a disparate area. So we actually have higher health costs because of the distances people have to travel and the demographic makeup of our communities. And unless we address those real health costs, then we're not actually spending enough on health, and that's quite clear.
Awesome. Okay, well thank you so much for that, Shane. We're getting to the end of our interview now, so we're going to fire into a different kind of questioning. So we're just going to do a quick fire round to get to know our MPs a little bit differently. So take it away.
What's the best pub in Dunedin?
Albar.
Stewart Street. Whereabouts that?
That's in Stewart Street.
Right.
Stewart Street. Yeah.
Awesome. In 10 words or less, what can students, like poor students like myself and Alex, what can we do to live more sustainable lives?
You need to learn about sustainability and bring it to your workplace when you leave here.
If you had to pick a favourite Highlander?
Ben Smith.
Yeah, can't really get past Ben Bender. And finally, what is your prediction for the Super Rugby final this Saturday? Biggest game of the year.
Crusaders 100-0, but reality, Lions are probably going to win because altitude, home advantage.
All right, thank you, Shane. That's all we've got time for this week.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in. And to the audience at home, please go in there, like our Facebook page, and send us your questions for next week. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shane.